What's up, everybody? You're on the Low Ball Pod. He's Lucas. I'm Owen. And welcome to our debut, our first episode, where we're going to be talking a little bit about the NBA offseason, picking some winners and losers on this nice, hot midsummer day. It's July 20th when we're recording this, FYI. So most of that off-season buzz is starting to quiet down a bit, but there very well could be some big moves before the start of the season, right? We saw last year, Lucas, your New York Knicks made the big trade for Karl Anthony Towns only like a week or two before the start of the season. So still possibly some more to come from the NBA offseason, but we're going to break it down. And starting with that, Lucas, buddy, how are you doing, man, on this monumental day for the pod? Why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers and tell everyone who that Lucas guy they're all talking about is?
Absolutely, man. Great to be here with you today. Going a little bit back to that Karl Towns news, I'll never forget where I was during that. One of the best moments of my tenure as a Knicks fan.
Worked out pretty well for both teams, right?
Yes, sir. Very happy to be here with you today. Excited to start this up with you, and we're going to dive into some teams today. But before we do that, just a little bit about me. I'm coming to you from Connecticut today. Born and raised here, and I am all New York for my teams. We already touched on the Knicks. That's my favorite team. I'm a big Mets guy as well. That just started back up. They just got through their All-Star break there. And I'm also a Giants fan, unfortunately. But we will talk a little bit more about that in some other pods. Today we are focusing on the NBA season, what has been touched on so far through this free agency, through the draft, different trades, moves, anything like that. But I'll give it back to you for a moment if you want to break it down a little bit about yourself before we dive into the teams as well.
Yeah, so a little awkward between us with me being a Celtics fan, of course.
Yes, sir.
Definitely didn't end the season the way I wanted to, and we're probably not going to talk too much about
hey, we can
my Celtics on this pod. No, I'm good, honestly, but for looking towards football season, I'm hype about the Patriots. Red Sox are playing well, so it's all right here in Boston. That's where I'm shooting from. But anyways, let's get right into these winners and losers because we got a lot to talk about. Even though might have been a little bit more mild of an off season than maybe someone who's in charge of NBA media and news suggested.
Let us down, Shams. Really did.
a little bit of a letdown from Shams, but still some pretty key moves to fill out some of these teams. But not necessarily the one big, I'd say the one big move, yeah, is with our first winner here. It's got to be the Houston Rockets. Just to run through their offseason a little bit, they started off by re-signing Steven Adams and a couple of depth pieces. They extended Jabari Smith Jr., their high draft pick out of Auburn a couple years back. They gave him $122 million over 5 years, and they also agreed to an extension with Fred VanVleet on a 2-year, $50 million deal. I think good value for him. And in terms of additions, obviously the big 7-team trade, first in NBA history. They bring in Kevin Durant. Just huge for them and their team, but
definitely the biggest move so far. Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. But they also bring in Clint Capella on a little 3-year deal.
Welcome back.
Yeah, little reunion there. Reliving his glory days a bit, maybe. Definitely not what he once was, but some center depth to back up their young star in Sengun, and then pair with Steven Adams. So fill in there. Can never have too many bigs, I guess. And then another nice solid addition they made was bringing in Dorian Finney-Smith on I think it was like an $13 million a year deal for 4 years. So getting that 3-and-D wing to complement what they got going here with KD, building it out around him. But they do let go of Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green as part of that big 7-team trade for KD, and also getting rid of Cam Whitmore. Probably just a situation where this team's a little too crowded. Whitmore definitely needs a little more volume in his pass, so they grab a couple of second-round picks, sending him to the Wizards. But let's really just break into this team, what we think about them, their additions. Obviously, you got to start with KD, who really is, in my opinion, kind of the perfect guy to plug into this team for what they needed. You can say his age and whatnot, but I mean, in my opinion, KD is maybe has the second most longevity ever in terms of NBA players. Is that crazy to say? And you definitely couldn't tell last year that he's getting up there in age. He was 27 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists on 43% from 3, 53% from the field. That's good for 65% true shooting. And that's just really been the norm for KD his whole career. He's a guy who you're going to bring in. You're going to get a difficult shot maker, a guy who can really carry the load as that first option in your half court offense, which obviously the Rockets last year, you're kind of in that classic mold as like a young athletic team who goes in the playoffs, high seed, you can play hard during the regular season, but when it slows down in the playoffs and you really need those buckets on those slower possessions, it wasn't necessarily there. I mean, they fought hard in that first round, eventually losing in 7 to the Warriors. But I mean, it felt to me like just it was hard to get over that kind of slow, weird kind of offense they went into the playoffs with last year. That series was a total rock fight. I think it was like 105 points per games on both sides. And when you get KD, you are bringing in an efficient guy, a guy who's going to instantly fit well with pretty much any situation you have. And I mean, even though he was in a pretty weird situation these past few years with how the team construction in Phoenix has gone, when KD is on the court for Phoenix and when that team's fully healthy, like they weren't a top seed, but they were a team with a winning record. They were able to, leverage the scoring of him and Book. And I just think KD is a very positive plug and play player for a team that needs exactly that on the offensive end.
Yeah,
What do you think
absolutely.
about this?
Absolutely, man. Kevin Durant, of course, one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. I think it really came down to, of course, you draft Jalen Green second overall in 2021, and the ceiling at the time seems pretty limitless. This is, of course, the guy that I think they were hoping to build around initially as kind of their first option on offense and just an offensive juggernaut. He showed flashes throughout his tenure in Houston, had some high highs and some very low lows, including some moments in the playoffs that might have been the last straw for Houston, where I think it's an appropriate departure. And I know some Rockets fans are probably upset about losing Green because he's still very young, but this is a great win now move. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a solid first option on offense, there's really not many better than Kevin Durant. If you can also make the argument that this is one of the best situations he's ever stepped into. I know he's had, of course, the drama with Brooklyn, the drama with Phoenix. Those were kind of rocky, as you touched on. But yeah, I mean, he's stepping into a very clear-cut role here with an awesome head coach in Ime Udoka. And I definitely like the outlook for Houston next year. I think they'll be atop the West as long as they can stay healthy. Clint Capella, yeah, pretty solid pickup for the back of the bench. I mean, they did like their 2 big man lineups last season. There was a lot of Steven Adams and Sengun sharing the court, so I'm sure they'll throw Capella into that mix as well. And they can really beat you in a lot of different ways. They can go small if they need to. They can go massive if they need to. And yeah, it's just going to be a versatile team and definitely a tough outcome the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, the superpower for the Rockets last year was the defense and the rebounding. I mean, this was a team that was way more physical than everyone on the boards. That's where their clear advantage was. And I think bringing Steven Adams back is big for that, as he kind of dominated in the playoffs against what Golden State was trying to do with some of those wonky small ball lineups. But I think getting back to the KD versus Jalen Green thing, it's like, if you're a Rockets fan, you're going to go into every game just feeling not having to worry about, is it going to be a clunker from Jalen Green? Is it going to be you're not praying for your offensive leader to come out and shoot a consistent game. KD is going to come in and he's going to set a strong floor for your offense. And a team like the Rockets that are so young, that have these intriguing pieces, a guy like Amen Thompson, you got the young Jabari Smith. I mean, it just takes the load off of those guys and allows them to kind of fill into their roles that, they're meant to play. And I just think if I was a Rockets fan, I would enjoy watching this team a lot more this year. Just, I mean, KD is one of the best scorers ever. So taking that versus let's just face it, an inconsistent Jalen Green, it's going to be a lot more smooth sailing for them this year. And I think it really is a move that, even though they were the second seed last year, I don't think many people were expecting them to make too deep of a run or too much noise in the playoffs because of that offense. And I think this move sets them up to get into that top tier in the West to compete against the OKCs and the Denvers of the world. I'm super high on what this team can do. And yeah, I mean, it just sets up, rather than having to rely and put a lot of the offensive load onto these younger guys that you have in Sengun, Amen, and Jabari Smith, like, you're just going to get a lot. I think you're going to see them attack in a lot of different ways this year, like you said, just because you got it, like a guy like Amen, who I think is going to be like an X factor this year. It's really, this team is going to be dictated by how big of a leap he can take, because, I mean, if you watch Amen Thompson, you can see the ceiling immediately. The guy is one of the most athletic guys in the league. He just simply moves a little bit differently than most of the guys you see on the court. And I think allowing him to kind of pick and choose his times where he can push it, where he can fully exert himself on defense. I think Jabari Smith, giving him a little more off-ball work, I think that's going to be good for his style of play, as kind of lanky, kind of more 3-and-D wing. Not having Fred VanVleet as your primary like creator and facilitator, just more of like a off-ball guy, probably more similar to what he was doing on those good Toronto teams that he was on. And then, I mean, Sengun is no doubt a great building block, but as a scorer, he's another guy who, I mean, he's just your center, but he's not necessarily going to shoot over 50% from the field in a given season. So I think just brings a lot of consistency, and it gives a lot of their guys room to grow here.
Most definitely, man. Just briefly before we move on to the next team, I think Amen is in for a huge year. Really high on what he showed last season, and really just the growth throughout the season as well. I recall he started off pretty rocky, kind of looked like the same player that we saw throughout his rookie season, but we quickly saw him take on more responsibility, some more ball handling duties, and I think the main thing for them is they just need him to be their most consistent downhill attacker this year, both in transition and in the half-court offense, because one thing Jalen Green did do was he did definitely put a good amount of pressure on the rim, and that's something that you might be losing with Kevin Durant as he is continuing to age and kind of play in his in-between arc game as well as beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the next step for Thompson is, if he wants to become that 15 to 18 points per game guy, is just get uber aggressive and maximize that athleticism. and take advantage of the new spacing that you might see with Finney-Smith and Durant out there. The ceiling for Houston is pretty limitless, seemingly. But moving on from
I
them,
agree.
of course, another team that has made a lot of noise this offseason and a lot of people are high on, ourselves included, is definitely the Atlanta Hawks. This team saw an opportunity with some unfortunate injuries that took place in the Eastern Conference playoffs and in the finals. They are really just going all in this year. And some of their major moves that they made consist of, first, they did agree to a 4-year deal with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They were able to get him away from Minnesota, and he will be with them for the next 4 seasons, earning about $15 million a year. I really like this move for them. This is a great two-way guard, a guy who can potentially start some games, but I think obviously he'll just be a great bench guard for them, 3-and-D player. If you have him and Dyson playing together in the backcourt, that is a nightmare for opponent guards. A guy that just showed a lot of improvement as well in his time with Minnesota, and definitely a guy I'm high on there. They added Luke Kennard, a lights-out shooter, one of the best shooters in the NBA.
Sneakily.
You can never have enough of them. And just an awesome guy to play next to Trae Young. I'm sure he'll be seeing some of the best looks he's ever gotten in his career with a playmaker that elite. Another guy that you have to mention is, of course, Kristaps Porzingis, who they acquired in a 3-team deal, of course, coming over from the Boston Celtics as they're having an eventful offseason themselves. But Porzingis and Trae Young, we just think about what the pick and roll looks like there and just the offense as a whole, this is an awesome fit. If Porzingis can get over that mystery illness that we saw him dealing with throughout the playoffs and look more like himself, that could really take this team to another level and perhaps maybe one of the top 3 teams in the East this year. They did lose a couple players, nobody too notable. Of course, Clint Capella, like we talked about. But, man, I'm really high on the Hawks this year. I mean, if you want to build a team around a player like Trae Young, who does need kind of a specific type of style of player around him to succeed, I think they kind of did as good as you can do here with, of course, Trae at the 1, and then Dyson Daniels, the breakout most improved player from last year, absolute elite defender, a dream 2-guard to plug in next to someone like Trae Young who has those defensive shortcomings. Then you have the first overall pick from last season, Zachary Risachet. Pretty underrated rookie year that he had.
Showed a lot of growth.
Around 15 points a game since the All-Star break. He had a great second half of the year. Another guy who is a strong defender. He can play off the ball. He can catch and shoot. And I'm sure as he develops this season, we might see a little bit more on-ball creation from him as well. I think that's definitely within the cards. And then, of course, probably the second best player on this roster, who unfortunately had his season cut short last year, Jalen Johnson, just a phenomenal forward for them. He is an uber athlete, someone who's a dream pairing with Trae Young, just an awesome lob threat for him. But someone as well, we kind of saw him break out 2 seasons ago when he kind of got into a bigger role and really take that next step last season. He can play on the ball and off the ball. He's awesome in transition. And if you have him at the 4, Porzingis at the 5, this is just a very, very solid 5-man lineup. Absolutely. And another important player that we might want to mention for them, we'll get into in a little bit later, the trade details on one end, but they did make a certain trade with the New Orleans Pelicans that landed them a later pick in the first round this year. They ended up grabbing Asen Newell, who is an awesome center prospect as well. Definitely a guy who can be another dream lob threat for Trae Young. And they really just did no wrong this offseason to me. I'll pass it to you and see if you have any reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, the trade I thought was a great move by them. I mean, we talk about them kind of going a little more all in on this weak East, but I mean, with moves like that and kind of just like a 1-year prove it thing with Porzingis, like I'm totally okay with this team like saying, hey, it's a weak East this year. Anyone can come out. Look at what happened this past year. I don't think anyone was expecting the Pacers to come out, and then you lose another 2 of the top best teams like to injuries, or 3 even if you count Dame and whatever is going on in Milwaukee. It's like like Porzingis, obviously you have the weird kind of illness. I don't even really know like what was the whole situation with that in the playoffs, because he actually did not look like Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, I don't know who was out there. It was not him. It was the ghost of him or something. I mean, when that guy's at his best, like one of the most valuable like builds and archetypes for a center in the league. You have a guy who can space the floor. Obviously, he's up around high 30s in 3-point shooting. He has a good mid-range shot, great on those like pick and pops with Trae Young. Also great off the roll, can finish inside with the length and stuff. He's a guy who can attack mismatches very, very well. I mean, in terms of post-ups, he was one of the best post-up players in the league too, and using that length to take advantage of those guys. Can play off the ball perfect. I mean, I love this front court of him and Jalen Johnson. I mean, you have the pick and pop ability with Trae there, and then you also have the lob threat with Jalen Johnson, and then also Asa Newell is pretty good at that, which you talked about. The other, I mean, Kennard, sneakily, like I said, like sneakily one of the best shooters we've seen in like a very long time. I think it was his third straight season leading the league in 3-point percentage. So it's like, add that guy to Trae's system. That's awesome. You mentioned Risa Shea, a lot of development last year. The shot really came on the second half. Another perfect guy, like another perfect 3-and-D athletic wing to plug next to Trae in this system. And then Alexander Walker, a guy who can cover up Trae's deficiencies and also can occasionally shoot the ball pretty well. I don't think losing Capella or Levert or any of those guys is that big of a loss. They sent Niang to my team.
Sorry about that.
Which, but I don't know, might be a
Luke
game.
Kennard, third highest 3-point percentage in NBA history.
Yeah,
for his career.
Like, he's going to be, like, Trae is a guy who can set up people, like, at just about the best rate in the league, and it's a great landing spot. I love what they're building. I think this team fits together super well, and I think we've talked about this. I think Trae has, gotten pretty underrated throughout the years with some of the teams that he's been lined up. I mean, the best piece that he's been given since his championship run was DeJounte Murray, who, as we see in New Orleans now, is almost looking like a negative asset in terms of not a very efficient shooter. I never really understood the fit there. And it felt like they wasted a few years of Trae Young, because this is a guy, when he's at his best, one of the best distributors in the league. Obviously likes to space the floor, takes his threes, and yeah, I'm super, super high on this team, and I think they should be towards the top of the East.
I am a rare Knicks fan that you'll find that is a very big supporter of Trae Young. I really love what he does.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in our future episodes, we'll definitely touch a little bit more on, of course, his capabilities as we do some player rankings and stuff like that. But
as a Celtics fan, they always played us well. But yeah,
definitely.
Let's move on to the next team, Denver.
Yeah, for sure.
Our next team here.
So you got it.
Yeah. So Denver, obviously a team that pushed the eventual champions to 7 games in a series that, really could have gone either way. And they did not kind of sit pat like they have in previous off seasons and just kind of run it back with the same group that won them a championship a few years ago. I love their offseason. They're definitely a winner to me. They start out by bringing back Bruce Brown to help command that bench unit that has been just such an issue really ever since he left. I mean, the bench unit kind of the whole time Jokic has been in Denver has always been a problem. Like, they have always been just a pitiful team in the non-Jokic minutes. Bruce Brown's a guy who can do a little bit of everything to help that out. And then the big move of the offseason for them was getting off of Michael Porter Jr. and bringing in who I think is a better player in Cam Johnson. Just a guy who, has a little more feel for the game. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. obviously not one of the best decision makers in the league. He just, the ball kind of stops once it gets to that guy. But Cam Johnson, a guy I think who can play a little bit better in the flow of the offense, and just a guy who can pretty much equal MPJ in terms of shooting too. Last year, he was 39% from three and 19 points per game on a Brooklyn team that really didn't have much else going on. And one of the other best parts about this is that they get a lot more cap flexibility after this move. The MPJ deal was notoriously holding him back in terms of cap a little bit. They get off of his longer and more expensive contract and get a way more team-friendly deal that allows them to bring in some other complementary pieces like a Tim Hardaway Jr. who can space the floor like they need, who can, just get some three-point shots up, which we saw they definitely were lacking in the bench unit this year. They had to rely on guys like Julian Strother to be out there and space the floor when you have a lot of inconsistent shooters around Jokic. And they bring in Jonas Valanciunas. I don't know the situation with his willingness to play for the Nuggets, but they did trade for him. They flipped Dario Saric for him, so not much of a loss. And this is easily the best backup big they've had in the Jokic era. I mean, they've been running DeAndre Jordan out there as a backup for him, which is just kind of a joke, honestly, and probably a big reason why the non-Jokic minutes are as bad as they are. But Valanciunas, definitely a capable backup big if he wants to play for them. They also have, is it Day'Ron Holmes, the second-year guy coming off. I think he was out for the year last year, but another intriguing big man prospect that they're going to get back this year. So, I mean, the Nuggets, I love how much more flexible they are going in the future now, and I love the Cam Johnson fit. I'm very high on him, and some of the ancillary moves they made. I love this retool. Just keep giving Jokic as many chances as he can get, because to me,
that's
he's
the name
by
of the
far the
game
best player
when
in
it
the
comes
world.
to that's the name of the game when it comes to Denver. You have, of course, like you just said, the best player in the world, and you cannot be complacent in those times if you're not finding consistent success. Of course, they did win a championship just a couple years ago, but they have fell quite short of that goal since then. And I'm sure Jokic, as much as sometimes it looks like he doesn't care, he really does want to get back there. And I think they did a great job this offseason. If he is going to get back there, helping him achieve that. Like you touched on, Bruce Brown, a guy who had the best season of his career when he was with Denver previously. He was awesome throughout the playoffs for them as well. A versatile player who can do a little bit of everything for you off the bench. Cam Johnson, a guy who's definitely more cerebral than who they parted with, Michael Porter. Just a guy who knows his role. He doesn't really have an ego, and I think that he is definitely more of a winning player. Tim Hardaway, a guy who can come off the bench and provide a spark at times. He was pretty annoying in that Pistons series in the first round against us. I know that he can pop for some big games. And man, definitely high on what Denver did this year. And they're going to be atop the West again. They, of course, have the best player in the world, so anything's possible with that. Another team that I definitely feel like is a winner this offseason would have to be the Orlando Magic. Almost in a similar boat as the Atlanta Hawks, a team that did definitely see that the East is more open than previous years coming into next season. And they made a couple big moves, which they often don't. One, of
give
course,
them a round
the
of
major
applause
one
for
is
that.
trading. Definitely.
I mean,
definitely.
Just been such a stagnant
Bain, of course,
organization.
is the big name when you think about the Orlando Magic. Yeah. We have a good buddy as well who's a big Magic fan, and we know that they can be quite complacent for years at a time. But like I was saying, of course, Desmond Bain, the big name that they landed this year. Previously, the shooting guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, and a guy who is pretty much an all-star level player. Like, this is a guy who averages about 20 a game for his career. I think a few years ago when Ja missed a majority of the season with that suspension, he was up around 23 a game. And he is one of the best shooters in the league, a 41% career three-point shooter. And this is a guy who does it off the dribble, off the catch, any way you want it. And what is a better skill to add to this Orlando Magic team than a little bit of shooting? We know that they struggled massively there in last season. The offensive end of the court was not a pretty sight for them at times. And of course, they did have an injury-riddled season, but at the end of the day, just their shooting from the top of the bottom to the roster is really lacking. They were by far the worst three-point team production-wise last season. So bringing in Desmond Bane is going to change that.
For like a decade.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge addition there. Do I think it's going to completely solve that problem that they have? I don't. Maybe a little bit more, a couple role player or two more who can shoot the ball would definitely help them more, but it is definitely going in the right direction there. As is adding Tyus Jones, who is definitely a great facilitator. Another thing that they needed was kind of that primary ball handler, right? And even if Tyus Jones is coming off the bench, this is a role that he can still achieve for them. They just don't really have that like 1A playmaker type of guy, a role that Tyus Jones is comfortable and familiar in. So yeah, another team that had a very productive offseason, and I'm high on the Magic next year.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Desmond Bane is just kind of what they needed. You know, it's one of the worst three-point shooting teams like of the modern era. They just haven't adapted to that really at all. And Bane is a guy who comes in, gives you he's 41% from three on his career, like you said, around 20 a game. So he's just perfect spacing play for them. They desperately needed it, considering their two stars are a little iffy from there. I mean, Franz has completely fallen off from three since the beginning of his career, and Paolo is average or so. Is what he is as a three-point shooter. You're hoping for some development there, but you need a guy who can come into the lineup, and that's what he does, and that's what he gives. And Desmond Bane is that guy. He isn't a bad defender too either, not going to take away from this team's strong defensive identity. And yeah, Tyus Jones, another good addition. I think he's been like the leader or near the leader in assist to turnover ratio the past few years. And that's a good bench add, but I do think that this team, looking at them going forward, I think that's probably the last domino that I need to see fall with them before I start considering them in this contender conversation, is a starting level playmaker facilitator to run this offense. I think they hope that Paolo or Franz get to that point, but I don't know if either of those guys are quite there yet. Paolo especially kind of, I wouldn't say he was a little bit maybe disappointing in terms of taking the steps to be the leader on that team. He struggled a little bit with his shot selection last year, in my opinion. I like to see him getting more downhill into the rim. But yeah, I think the team, their offense definitely improves a lot from the spacing from the Bane move, but I would like to see a starting level facilitator in there moving forward. But yeah, they're definitely a winner. Bane is one of the best players to get moved this offseason. They lose Cole Anthony, who is probably addition by subtraction, as I think the Clippers like to say. And I think that they lost KCP too, which didn't really work out for them. So yeah, simple off season, but they address what they need. Let's get into, I think this is maybe the last major winner of the off season, and whether you want to give them credit for that or not, it's up to you, is the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, this team, they got bailed. We can just say that.
Yes,
I don't think there's really any Nico Harrison super fans out there that are going to debate me on that one. This team gets Cooper Flagg just thrown on top of like what was, I mean, although damaged by the Luka trade, still like a quality top of the conference type of team that had depth, defense. You have Kyrie Irving coming back from that injury, but just a rare level like number 2 option. And obviously Anthony Davis, who's top 10 player in the world right now, and you inject one of the best first overall picks of the modern era into that. And especially it's Cooper Flagg, who I see as a guy who just does all the connective things right. He's a great defender. He's a great passer. Obviously was up at like 18 points a game in terms of scoring. Just an all-around player who I think is going to come into this team at first and do a lot of the winning things. I mean, I think this team's ceiling will really be dictated by how fast Cooper Flagg can come in and be that NBA star that we all think and probably know that he's going to be. And what a situation for him. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a situation where a number 1 pick gets to go into a team that has what do they have? 2 Hall of Famers, 3 Hall of Famers with Clay too. I mean, plus I love this team's depth. They got Max Christie as part of that trade last year, who's a good guy. They still have the 2 bigs and Lively and Gafford. They got PJ Washington as depth. Najee Marshall had a big year last year, and then to fill in for the Kyrie injury, they bring in D'Angelo Russell, who obviously you saw for the Lakers a couple years back shouldn't be trusted as necessarily a X factor high impact guy for your team. But I mean, if you're going to be giving D'Angelo Russell, like when this team's fully healthy, he can't get more than like 15 minutes a game. If you just have him come in as a scoring threat, if he's not on, then you take him out. But I mean, he's a guy who can come in and give you a huge punch. Like this team just has a lot of different guys they can throw at you. I mean, I'm super excited. This might be the team that I might be most excited to watch, obviously when Kyrie comes back, but they're a really exciting team. Definitely a winner.
Definitely a winner. I like pretty much everything that they did here. I like D'Angelo Russell as a guy who's going to come in and probably just hold it down until Kyrie's healthy. I think that's something that he's capable of. Give him a productive first half of the season, and then, he can be delegated to more of a bench role after that. When this team has Kyrie, they're going to be really scary. If Cooper Flagg comes in ready to go, which if you've been watching some Summer League, he looks pretty ready in there. I know he had a rough first game, but he's making some crazy plays over there, and I know it's just Summer League, but it is still kind of telling. He definitely looks ready to me. I know he's only 18, but this is a guy who can definitely come in and run away with Rookie of the Year if all goes according to the plan for him. The defensive upside of that front court is pretty tantalizing. I mean, this is already an all-time defender in Anthony Davis and an all-time defensive prospect that you're now pairing him with. The upside for this team is definitely immense this year.
What do you think they do for the starting lineup? You think they play AD at the 4 or at the 5 and Flagg at the 4?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think ultimately they're trying to push Flagg to be more of a 3 long term, just because they have all that front court depth of an awesome center duo, like you said, and then PJ Washington and AD on top of that. Is Cooper ready to play small forward day one? Probably not. So I would imagine something along the lines of Kyrie, Clay, PJ at the 3, maybe Cooper, Flagg, and Davis.
They just have so much that they can throw at you. I love the amount of looks they can give. It might be on a game-by-game
basis, to be honest. It might be depending on who they're playing that night and how they have to match up against them, which is a luxury in itself.
Yeah. I think they even have room to probably make a few more moves because they have an embarrassment of riches right now. Like, you have 3 starting quality centers in Lively, Davis, and Gafford. I know Davis likes to play the 4, but
And
I think on a
again,
team like this, you can.
though, when you can get a player like Cooper Flagg on one of those rookie contracts, it is really a time to try to take advantage of that with the new CBA and everything. We saw the Thunder just do it. Of course, Dub and Chet both just got their heavy extensions. We knew those were coming; those were inevitable. But they were able to build this incredible team off of course, building through the draft and the affordability that allows.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
if we, yeah,
Kyrie, like if it really comes down to him being healthy.
yeah,
Because this team can definitely be a contender. But I think we want to touch on a couple more teams just really quickly
for
that
sure.
made some moves that we maybe not complete winners, but they did some good stuff.
These are like
Let's
some maybe gray area,
yeah,
but
they're
trending towards winning, I would say.
yeah moral wins or whatever you want to call them.
So,
Let's start with the Lakers. They
yeah.
came out slow out of the gates of the offseason. I know people maybe wanted a little more activity from them, but I do like
That's their fan base.
Yep. Right. I'm disappointed they didn't get Giannis and all those guys according to the
Maybe
jersey
Jokic
swaps and something. Yeah, sure. But I mean they have Luka and LeBron, so that's a great starting point. And I think they filled in some good value adds. DeAndre Ayton, say what you want about him. If you get him for $8 million a year, I think that's pretty solid. A guy who has good touch on the offensive end, is a guy who's been capable of averaging around 18 points per game throughout his career and can get you 10 boards to do that. I think he's a good offensive center. Obviously, there's questions about his drive necessarily and his
The motor,
toughness.
yeah.
And yep, that's where you get the discount on him. But I mean, dude, he's gonna be getting set up by Luka and LeBron. It's like being a center for this team is a pretty luxurious role. I mean, he could average 20 points a game just based off getting complete at the rim looks.
Yeah, I mean,
which is going to be awesome for them.
Is this a player that I'm incredibly high on? I would say no. Is this a player that once was unable to make it to a game because of icy roads? That is, yes, true. But like you said, there is not much better of a situation that a center can be popped into, especially for this type of contract. I mean, it's a no-brainer for them. This is a guy who has had a lot of criticism throughout his years, but at one point he was a starting center on a team that made the NBA Finals. So that is a fact, and it's something that I'm sure the Lakers know, and he has a lot of offensive upside. I don't know how the defense is going to be looking on this team. Of course, they did bring in someone else to help address that, which was Marcus Smart. I did like that pickup a lot for them. I think this is a great guy to put next to someone like Luka, who has his well-documented shortcomings on the defensive end. And a guy who can be sporadic at times, I'm sure you know, as he was on your team for the better part of a decade. But I mean, there's no doubt that he brings energy, hustle, and a lot of intangibles to the team, which is definitely something the Lakers needed.
I mean, for Smart, it's probably at this point a question of how many games you're going to get out of him. Like the past 2 or 3 years, I think he's only played like 20 games a season or so. So that's a big question. But I mean, when the guy's on the court, that's your point of attack defender, which this is what that team needed desperately. I mean, you love the offense with guys like Luka and LeBron at this age. I mean, and Ayton, Reeves too. Those are all guys who can, get you buckets. But the big concern with this team was you lose DFS to the Rockets. You don't really replace him with anyone, and you have this very offensive centric lineup. Which I mean, I do think the offense is going to be one of the best in the league. But Smart just, I think, hopefully can instill that hustle and effort, and hopefully that kind of drapes throughout the rest of the team like it did in Boston in some of his earlier years. But I think for the contract, that's a great risk to take. And they also bring in Laravia, who's kind of a long wing for them. Maybe they'll be able to get something out of him. I don't think they paid too much for him. yeah, that's the Lakers. Going to
Yeah.
be interesting to see what they do this year.
Yeah, and if we go across, of course, to the other LA team who's had a fairly eventful offseason as well. Um, of course, the most recent news that broke regarding them is being able to bring in Bradley Beal after the buyout with the Suns. Beal is definitely quite the polarizing player at this point, but no doubt someone who, for now, a 2-year, $11 million contract is under a great deal for this team, and someone who can definitely fill the void for the departure of Norman Powell and definitely step into that offensive role and maybe even do it better. I do want to also give a quick shout out to James Harden, who did agree on a 2-year extension this year with the Clippers, but he took quite a heavy pay cut. And because of this, they were able to both bring in Beal and the other guy, Brook Lopez, who they signed this year, which is a pretty awesome backup center to have for Zubac. And just another guy who can even space the floor when he comes in off the bench. And yeah, I mean, their roster is definitely looking very solid right now.
Yeah, I like the Clippers. Definitely shout out to Harden for the pay cut. I mean, he was surprisingly great last year, I think. Great floor raiser, especially in the regular season. He's gonna command your offense, and that usually comes with a pretty high floor. And when you surround him with Bradley Beal, who can play pretty well off the ball and was 38 from 3 last year, 17 points per game. I mean, Beal he wasn't the best player for that Phoenix team. I don't know if I really bought in with the fit there, but on a team like this where you're asking him to do a lot less and kind of just play off the ball, do what he does, do some more of that connective stuff, I think this is a great spot for him. And I think that definitely was kind of baked into the John Collins, Norman Powell trade that they were going to be able to get him. So when you can flip Norman Powell and get Collins and Beal, I think that starts to look like a better trade for them. I know I wasn't super high on it at first, but Collins, another guy who can just give you a different look on offense, is going to be a good lob threat for Harden, good on the pick and roll. And yeah, I like the versatility they brought in with the bigs. I like the Clippers as a solid team that'll potentially. I'm not going to call them a contender, but they can potentially make some noise. They brought the Nuggets to 7. And yeah, I think as for winners, that's a lot. You might want to touch on your Knicks. I know you're pretty excited about the new coach come in there.
Yeah.
Hey, say a little about that.
Just diving into my guys quick. We had, of course, just a couple small additions on the side. We got Jordan Clarkson on a 1-year deal, which
I like it.
Was a deal that I was definitely happy about. This is a guy who is definitely streaky at times, but for 1 year, 3.6, there really aren't too many bad 1-year deals. I mean, worst case, we just don't re-sign him. And this is just someone who addresses a major need for us. It was very well documented throughout the regular season, throughout the playoffs, that the Knicks were definitely lacking as far as bench offense. And you can call this a product of Tom Thibodeau or just a product of kind of the people that we had coming off the bench. Personally, I think it was a little bit of both. But yeah, I mean, last year the Knicks were dead last in bench points per game, 21.7, and that dipped to 15.8 in the playoffs, which you were really not going to have too much of a ceiling if you were only getting about 15 points a game from your bench. So yeah, I think Jordan Clarkson definitely addresses that need, as well as Gershon Yabusele, who had a pretty under-the-radar season last season,
Celtics
probably
legend.
because of the team he was on, which is a very disappointing Sixers team, but he definitely held his own, and I'm definitely happy about that addition as well. We got him on a 2-year, $12 million deal, and this is a versatile big who can kind of come off the bench and be a better Precious Achua for us, so I definitely approve of that. And last but not least, of course, the major move for the Knicks was the coaching change. We got rid of our coach about a week removed from being eliminated from the playoffs, which had a mixed reaction from my fan base. I was kind of stuck in the middle there when it comes to my personal opinion. I am a big Tibbs guy, but I do think it was an appropriate time to part ways. I think we did reach our ceiling with him, and I think that Mike Brown coming in here can definitely elevate our ceiling. I was checking out my boys. I forget the name. The roommate show, Brunson and Hart. They were talking about their initial introduction to Mike Brown, and it sounds like everything's going well over there, which I'm very excited to hear about. And yeah, I look forward to more of that to come as the summer goes on. But I'm feeling good about my team next year, and maybe I can see the first finals berth of my life. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think bringing in Brown just helps unlock that offense even more. I mean, he was a guy obviously who brought that Kings team to one of the best offenses in the league, if not the offense, and just brought a lot of energy to that team. I think he's a good culture guy, and I think with your team, I think your superpower is obviously on the offensive side, where you have two guys in Brunson and Cat who can score the ball as well as pretty much anyone at their positions. I think you bring Mike Brown in, you just get a little bit more of those offensive nuances that maybe Tibbs wasn't including, a little bit of the off-ball movements. I think the big thing that I'd love to see Mike Brown tap into is maybe using Brunson a little more as an off-the-ball guy, which I do believe he can do. He definitely did it when he was in Dallas, and he's shown flashes of being able to do that. I think just kind of cleaning up the offense a little, make it a little more well run, get the ball moving a little more, I think is a good thing for the Knicks. And yeah, like you said, the conference is wide open. And yeah, bringing those two guys, because obviously you're gonna have to extend the rotation now because Tibbs is gone. I think you guys had a good offseason, but some teams in the NBA didn't. And we can even stay inside the same city for an example of that. The Brooklyn Nets they've had a lot of off seasons in this kind of situation. Just Brooklyn Nets. No offense to Nets fans out there, but the Nets just might be all-time losers. I mean, this team, they don't have much going for them. They went into the offseason with a record 5 first-round picks. It looked like it was going to be an exciting night for them, at least an impactful, pivotal one. But yeah, the reviews from their draft class have not been the best. They take Igor Demin at the 8th pick. Looking at the positive side, I think he was widely recognized as maybe the best, if not one of the best passers in the draft. I think he was up around 5 or 6 assists per game. Hopefully wasn't turning it over too much. But the question with him is the scoring, and you take him at the 8th pick, which was a little bit of a reach. Most mocks had him consensus around like 20th pick or so, but you're bringing in a guy who really, he's a big point guard who struggles to score, low from 3, low field goal percentage, low free throw. So I don't know how much you can project there on the shooting. And sure, I think if you love that guy, go with that. Try to invest in the upside of one of those big point guards who can distribute it. But when you follow it up with it was 2 other guys and kind of the same build, and Traore and Saraf, 2 other guys who aren't known for their scoring, known for their playmaking prowess. It's like these guys you can't play all these guys on the court at the same time. And it's like 2 more guys can't really shoot it that well, mostly known as passers. And then Danny Wolf. I liked Danny Wolf. I was big on him, but when you commit to the playmaking so heavily in your draft, maybe look somewhere else. I mean, Danny Wolf is a big man, but again, what's his big thing? Playmaking. So it's a little frustrating from them. They also got Drake Powell, who's a little less redundant there, but another guard nonetheless. So yeah, definitely a disappointing night for them. And round one of their draft. But they do bring back Daron Sharp and Zaire Williams, who were all right for them last year. They get off of, or they gain Terrence Mann's contract, and I think they got a pick for that, which isn't a bad move for them. Honestly, pretty good considering they're probably not going to be doing too much these next few years. Michael Porter Jr., they obviously got in that Nuggets deal, another kind of taking on the contract. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch him and Cam Thomas share the court, two notorious ball stoppers. But hopefully some buckets for them, for Nets fans. I mean, what do you think about this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit it on the nose there. The real standout for me from this draft was just the redundancy throughout the round, where there were a lot of different ways to capitalize on having that many picks, even trading some. But to acquire 3 guards with very similar skill sets and they all struggle with spacing in a time where spacing is as important as it's ever been. It just, when a team is in rebuild mode, I think it's very important to just establish a direction. And this is something that they failed to do repeatedly. And yeah, just not a team that I'm very high on next year. At least they do have their 2026 first rounder. So they do have that to look forward to if they're going to be in that AJ Debance sweepstakes, which I'm sure they will be right in there. But if we are going to move on here, of course, the Nets were probably our biggest loser.
I think that is important to mention, though, that they don't have their first round pick 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So
that's big.
I mean, this is a team that you want to see a little bit of. I mean, they don't have to be good this year, but year after that, they're gonna hopefully be getting a nice prospect in this draft for their sake. But let's get into the next loser that we have, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. Poor Giannis, because he is not getting surrounded with a great supporting cast there. They bring back Kevin Porter Jr. They gave Bobby Portis a bag to stay. Taurean Prince comes back and Gary Trent comes back. Some important role players for them last year. They give a contract to Cole Anthony, who was waived after getting traded to, I think it was the Grizzlies. And their big move was signing Miles Turner. But in order to do that, it should be noted they had to cut Dame and stretch his contract so that it's going to be a cap hit for, I think it's the next 5 years. I think it's going to be about 20 years or 20 million on the cap for the next 5 years. So that's going to be something that they have to work around as they try to build this around Giannis. And they also sign Gary Harris, if that matters to you. They get rid of Pat Connaughton, and obviously Dame is cut. I guess this team really were kind of doomed after the Dame injury strikes, because automatically you're going to be taking on that contract and he's not going to be playing. But I don't think they really made it any better by doing this whole wave and stretch thing. You're kind of kicking the can down the road, but like also just like limping your way along too, because you like with the new NBA CBA rules, like you really have to make the most of what you're allocating in terms of cap. There is not a lot of wiggle room, and if you're going to be paying this for the next 5 years, like $20 million is a quality player. You look at the Nuggets; they brought in Cam Johnson for $20 million a year. There's guys out there who are very impactful players playing on this $20 million a year contract. I mean, like Trey Murphy is on a $20 million contract. It's like that's no joke leaving that off. And that just, it seems desperate to me in an attempt to try to convince Giannis to stay. But I mean, you look at this team outside of Giannis and it's all players that nobody really wants. I mean, their big move in the middle of last season at the deadline, bringing in Kyle Kuzma, who it's like, I guess you get a little bit younger, but like you're taking on an inefficient player. You're getting rid of a guy who I thought might have just been better in Chris Middleton, and I don't think you're building for the future. You're just kind of trying to put out fires with whatever's available, and it's like at some point you gotta just face the facts, and the facts are that this team that you have around Giannis is a nightmare, and you're tied down. Like there's not much you can do, but I think it might be time for Milwaukee to face the obvious truth that they can't build a contender around Giannis anymore.
Yeah. When it comes to this team, we touched on the Nuggets much earlier, and one of the points that I made is that when you have one of the best players in the world, you should definitely be doing everything that you can to maximize that window, which then we gave them credit for earlier. They did take some actions this year to do that with Jokic, where this team is kind of at the opposite end. And yeah, Giannis is, to me, definitely a top 3 player in the world. And yeah, he does already have a ring, but this is a guy who is still in his prime, and when he's on your roster, you should be doing everything you can to try to contend around him and make him happy. Miles Turner is a good fit next to him. I will give them that. I think that was a solid pickup, but I think that the means that they went through in order to obtain Miles Turner is ultimately not worth it. And yeah, this team, when you look at the roster, like you said, it's just very uninspiring. An inconsistent Kyle Kuzma who really has faded into irrelevancy ever since he had been shipped off to Washington. Bobby Portis, who he's a middle of the pack forward, he's not really a needle mover.
And they gave him a 3-year extension.
Yeah, like the Gary Trent, he's a role player that I would have been decently happy if the Knicks picked up, but again, like not really a needle mover, not the type of roster that you expect to be around a player of this caliber. And yeah, I definitely feel comfortable labeling the Milwaukee Bucks as losers.
I feel bad too because obviously this is just a result of the Dame trade and then obviously the Dame injury. But I mean, when you look back at it, like wow, that trade really kind of just a failure, and it's sad because I mean I think we were all very sold on the Bucks when that trade first happened, but this was probably the worst outcome for it, and yeah, rough.
The
Rough
offensive upside of that duo seemed pretty limitless when that first dropped.
Just didn't mesh, and now torn Achilles. But I think you're right. Miles Turner is a good fit. A good fit.
Yeah,
but
if you do want to take away a positive, I would say that. But
yeah, you just have nothing else outside of that. I mean, who's their point guard going to be? I don't really know. Kevin Porter Jr. Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really want to talk about that lineup too much more. To be honest,
we can move on there.
Next loser.
Yeah, next here we do have the New Orleans Pelicans, a team who has had definitely an interesting offseason. And I think the main thundercloud that is now over this is the recent injury news to a player they put a lot of stock into this offseason in Derek Queen. It's been well documented that they did trade up about 10 spots with a trade with the Atlanta Hawks, and they were able to draft Mr. Queen with the 13th pick. This is a player who definitely has some upside, and he's an interesting prospect. But with this injury news and what they had to sacrifice being a pretty awesome pick that they sent back to Atlanta, and yeah, I'm just not really sure that, again, the direction that the Pelicans are trying to go into. They did also acquire Jordan Poole in a trade where they sent CJ McCollum to the Wizards. Jordan Poole and Zion Williamson being like the veterans of your locker room is not something that's very appealing to me. That's not something that I think is going to establish any type of positive environment or culture there. We know what those guys might be getting into off the court. But yeah, on top of that, they did also bring in Sadiq Bey through that deal, who's not the worst, pretty solid role player there. And then they also were able to grab Kevon Looney from the Warriors. The Kevon Looney era is now over in Golden State, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, just a team that they've been stuck here for a couple seasons now, and on paper the roster always seems to look passable. It did last year, and sometimes it's decimated by injury, sometimes it's off the court issues. Always seems to be something with the Pelicans.
Yeah, you're definitely right to say they're in a weird position right now. I mean, the process on the draft pick is really, really confusing to me. I mean, nothing against Derek Queen, but that is just really bold to send. I mean, we just talked about the Bucks as losers of this offseason. Now the Pelicans, another losers of this offseason. So the better of those two picks, which, I mean, could potentially be two pretty decent lottery shots, are now going to Atlanta. So you're forcing yourself into kind of a weird, like, win now, like this season position, but you're putting all of that belief into a rookie, and a rookie who has a kind of wonky fit with your team at that. I mean, I like Queen. I think he's a really interesting player, and I mean, he definitely is a fun scorer and was super fun to watch in the tournament, but he's a guy who's going to struggle on defense. He's not necessarily like elite level spacer. Like, he's not really, you don't really want him letting it fly from three. He's good in the mid range at shooting it, but I mean, he's not a guy that's going to work around Zion. And understand that you might not be trying to build around Zion anymore with all that's happened around him, but I mean, now you're trying to win this year. Is your approach to winning this year so that that trade makes sense? Trading away Zion, who is your best player right now? No, it's not. Your best chance of that trade working out is Zion plays and he's awesome, and I guess Derek Queen is awesome as a rookie, but then what do you do between those two guys long term? I don't know. And then yeah, I mean, the rest, they do have talent. I do want to give them that. I mean, it's weird talent. You got guys like DeJounte Murray and Jordan Poole who are kind of in weird stages of their career, but
Herb
could
and
be.
Trey on the wings.
Yeah, I mean, I like Trey Murphy a lot. I like Herb
Yeah.
Jones, who they extended.
Two of their better
Misi
players,
is a good piece. They still have Alvarado off the bench. I think they got Jordan Hawkins too, the Bay pick. I mean, they have good depth, but I mean, for a team that won 20 games last year, you're trading away your best pick next year. I mean, it's a bold strategy on that one for sure, and it sucks because I do like their players, but they're just in a weird spot. And I mean, you can like their team, but at the same time, it's like you look at the state of the West right now. Like, what do they need to go their way for the trade to work out? And it's like a lot of things, because there's not many teams that aren't contending in the West. I think if you look at the West, pretty much every team outside of the Jazz are going into this year with the same mentality that you have. We're going to push for the playoffs. We're going to try to make the play-in or whatever and get in. But it's aggressive. I guess, I mean, if Derek Queen ends up being a great player, which is in the realm of possibility, I mean, we're not going to overthink it. But if they flame out again, Zion plays 20 games, and obviously the team isn't super stacked outside of that, it's like there's a real chance that they traded away a top pick next year and are bad again. So
it essentially just comes down to you need a lot of things to go right in order to justify this at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's just head scratcher. I like Fears though. I do like Fears.
Definitely.
He's a cool player.
If we do want to move on here, another team we have labeled as a loser. This is mainly because of their inactivity this offseason. That is the Golden State Warriors. And I know the main rumor around this team is they're kind of waiting to figure out the whole Kuminga situation. But still, again, you can kind of take this even back to what we touched on with the Bucks. you have Stephen Curry, a top 10 player of all time, and his window is definitely closing for his prime years. So these off seasons are crucial. You have to do whatever you can to kind of maximize this window of the best player in your franchise's history. And of course, you still have Jimmy. That was a great trade that worked out well for you. But really, your only major move you have at this point is the departure of Kevon Looney. I don't think that's a passable offseason for this Western Conference that they're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that, of course, they can still make the playoffs. I trust Steph Curry. I trust Draymond and Jimmy. But I don't think their ceiling at the moment is much higher than maybe one playoff round victory, if that. So, yeah, definitely a team that I'm a little bit questionable about. We'll see if after the whole Kuminga deal, maybe we get a better idea of the direction they're going. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think the Warriors have had a good offseason.
Yeah. And I mean, they do plan to bring in Horford and I think it's D'Anthony Melton. And Horford, I think, is I think he's a good fit here. I mean, it's another kind of risk. I mean, Horford's 38, so you never know when that cliff is coming for him, but he fits what they're trying to do. Obviously putting a lot of pressure on an older player there, but he can kind of space it, play that typical Golden State offense that they like. But I mean, really, when you look at Golden State right now, like outside of Steph, I mean, they need like other guys who can shoot. They're relying on his gravity a lot. And yeah, it's probably the most gravity that any player ever has had from three, but like you need pieces that work better here. And I mean, Podziemski, he's not a guy who works super well around Jimmy and Draymond. I mean, I like their big three, and obviously it worked out well towards the end of last season with Jimmy. I think that's a good enough big three to make some noise in the playoffs, but you have to surround it with pieces that fit. And when it's going to be Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green as part of your big three, you better hope that the rest of your lineup is able to shoot the ball well, and that's just not what they have right now. They're very small team. I mean, they're relying on TJD and Quentin Post as their only real centers. So
that's no good. And like you said, of course, outside of Steph, and then I would throw Buddy Hield in there, of course, but outside of them, like, the shooting is really rough throughout this team. A team that built their entire kind of dynasty and identity on that. It's really taken a flip there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Hield's a guy too who, like, you really don't know what you're getting on any given night. I mean, it can be great, it can be horrible, and if he's not hitting that three for you, what's he doing? I don't know, but yeah, they need size. They got killed on that in the playoffs, so hopefully they can get Horford. It'll look a little bit better, but still a little bit disappointing for the Warriors, who, you know, got to be making the most of these final Steph years. But yeah, not too much more to talk about with them. Another team where honestly not that much to talk about, just kind of sad and disappointing. I mean, I feel bad for Pacers fans. They're our next loser. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I think as NBA fans, though, we all kind of let a sigh out when we saw that Halliburton situation after such a
joke, guys.
Such a great run.
I would never wish that on a player.
Yeah, I mean, they were such a fun team, but I mean, obviously Hallie's the guy who that all works through, and he goes down in the final game of the season. So this season was already going to be kind of a wash, but really the insult to injury, the kick to the crotch, is Miles Turner, who was literally like becoming the man in Indiana throughout the whole playoffs. The narratives was like, oh, this guy has been with the Pacers through trade rumors. He's been there since Paul George. Look at him through the years. He's like an all-time great franchise player. Like, he loves it here. This is awesome. And you lose him to like your biggest rival in the league. Like, those teams have some nastiness between them going back to like the play-in, and just locationally, it's like, I mean, I know you're probably not wanting to pay the luxury tax this year, knowing that you're not going to be able to contend without Hallie, but like look a little further down the road than that. Miles Turner is a key part of this offense, like a rare build, getting a center who can space the floor like that and shoot like that from three. I mean, he's a passable rim protector too. So it's like, I think you really gotta, the Hallie loss stinks. Like, you're not going to win the championship this year, but you can't, both of those just hurts. And like now it's not even just this year's, it's a wash. It's when Hallie comes back, you have another hole that you have to address. And yeah, it just kind of stinks seeing him go to the Bucks too, I imagine.
I definitely think that from their point of view, it's pretty inexcusable to not be willing to fork over that money for Turner, a guy who's been with your team since 2015 and is like a very solid starting center. I mean, the Pacers now are going to have to look to James Wiseman, maybe Jay Huff for some minutes. Like it's going to get grim at the center position for Indiana this year. And like you said, I know, they probably did not want to be in that tax bracket, but you do have to look more than just this 1 year and say, hey, when Tyrese comes back, he is still like mid-20s. So we still have something here. And this is something that we should be looking towards even through this season and building towards. So, I definitely think losing him was a major setback for Indiana. If we do want to go to another team that we don't think had the best offseason, that would be the Utah Jazz. This is a team who had some questionable departures, mainly pertaining to John Collins and Colin Sexton, who are both very solid, like good role players, and they just didn't get a good return for these guys. I mean, if you look who they brought in, we have Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, and Yusuf Nurkic who were adding to the roster. Like, this is a roster who, again, definitely got worse. Of course, through the draft, they did do a pretty good job bringing in Ace Bailey fifth. I know Ace Bailey wasn't the happiest to land in Utah, but it seems like things are sorting themselves out there now. And national champion Walter Clayton, they also brought in. Pretty solid pick there. They got him 18th. Those guys both have a good amount of upside, but again, with these rebuilding teams, I just look for direction. And with the Utah Jazz, I just don't really see one at the moment.
Yeah, I don't even really feel too much of the need to give the Jazz the time of day. I mean, I will say those two trades, I got maybe what you're trying to clear up space. I don't even know why you're doing that, but like, you can't get anything better than Yusuf Nurkic for Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton's a good NBA player. I mean, maybe it has to do with his I don't think his contract's even bad either, but like, you're getting, I think they gave away a second round pick too as part of that deal. So it's like, what's going on? I mean, Yusuf Nurkic, one of the least useful players in the league. He's a bench big at best. And then you're giving up John Collins for Kevin Love. Kevin Love's, I don't see him playing for the Jazz this year. I mean, I'd feel bad for him if he did. And Kyle Anderson, like, why do you want him? I mean, I think they got another second round pick in there, but John Collins, a guy who had a pretty solid season, like, and is going to be a good asset for the Clippers. Like, he's going to maybe be a starter. He's has a valuable skill set. No reason to waste any more time on them. I do like their draft though. Clayton can spray it from three, and Ace Bailey. It's a big question, but I mean, nobody's doubting the potential there.
Upside to be the best in the draft.
It
is there. So we'll give them that. But pretty grim team. If we do move on, one other team we did want to briefly talk about. Do I consider this team like a big loser of the offseason? Not necessarily, but just pertaining to some of the moves that the other teams in the Eastern Conference made in reference to this team, which is the Detroit Pistons. I do think that they have had a pretty underwhelming offseason. This mainly stems from I would definitely know. They definitely gave us a good battle in that first round playoff series, and Dennis Schroeder was a huge reason for that. Schroeder had some very clutch performances against us and just overall big games throughout the 6-game series, and they let him walk. They lose him to the Kings. I believe he signed a 3-year deal with Sacramento.
It's a big contract.
Yeah, that was a big loss for them, and to kick them while they're down, this news drops in the past week about some illegal gambling allegations for Mr. Malik Beasley, who, yeah, that is something that we will unfortunately probably see more and more of in the NBA and other sports, as of course we know that gambling is taking over the industry. But yeah, I mean, it seems like they got Beasley dead to rights here, that he was definitely throwing some wagers on the games, and this would lead me to believe that we might not see him in the league again. So
Do you see
that's a guy.
you see the clip of him? He sprints down the court with like 3 seconds left to lay it in. It's like, dude,
That's
you
an
gotta.
eyebrow-raising move. It definitely is.
It's on live
And-
TV. It's recorded right there for us. So I mean, that's just
Yeah.
a stupid thing. You're an NBA player, but
And this is a guy who just had a career season. Like, he would have gotten a bag from the Pistons this offseason, I guarantee it.
they were ready. I think they were ready to give him like $50 million or something.
Yeah, so
Which stinks. And he was huge for them. He was finally they finally got some pieces in there to help out Cade. They bring in like him and Tobias to just like make this not one of the worst shooting teams ever. Like open up some space for Cade to work. And I mean, you see what happened. They're one of the best, the best turnaround in the league. I mean, they still have like kind of the factor where they're young and they're growing, so everybody can get a little bit better. You know, Duren, Cade can get a little bit better. They're getting Jaden Ivey back. I think Ausar is a good piece moving forward. This team, they might not necessarily get any worse or anything, but I do think it's fair to have them as a loser, just
trending
with,
loser.
Yeah, just with how things went. I mean, they get Karis LeVert to kind of take the blow of
like a Schroeder type
of Beasley away, but I mean, yeah, he can dribble the ball a little bit on your bench unit. And then they throw big contract to Duncan Robinson too, which is a little bit questionable, and that might be one of those contracts that you see tying a team down in the future. One of those contracts that probably the team we just talked about would love to take on, the Jazz, but
definitely.
Yeah. Not too much to say. I still think they'll be all right, but you definitely could have been better.
Definitely with that. I still think this will be a good team. I think they'll be a top 5 seed in the East this coming year. But the moves they made, mainly that one that's pretty much out of their control with the Malik Beasley charges. Yeah.
We'll get to them in the future when we start to rank some of our Eastern Conference teams getting closer to the season. I think we touched on most of the big losers and winners of the offseason. One more team that I think we should maybe talk about, just because I'm sure people maybe were expecting to hear them in here. They were very active this season, and that's the Phoenix Suns, who obviously you're getting rid of Kevin Durant, which, I mean, isn't going to lead to good outcomes next season in terms of your win-loss, but something that we all kind of accepted and knew was going to happen. So they trade him and they get back Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks. I think is there any picks involved in that? Was there?
Yeah, it was Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and definitely a
that's the focal point of it.
I would say
probably pick or so, but nothing too serious into the future. And I would say the return for KD maybe was a little lackluster. You get Green, who I know they actually thought of rerouting a little bit, but he's a guy who, I mean, it's hard to really be in on Jalen Green right now, but he's a guy who still has a little bit of potential. Brooks can be a quality player in your rotation with the defense, and he's been shooting well from three the past few years. They brought in Mark Williams for, I think it was the Cavs pick, and two late firsts, which I don't think is a. Obviously, with Mark Williams, the question is that physical that he failed. So that's, I'm sure, where a little bit of the discount is, because when you look at his production, he's a pretty solid big. So I don't mind that, to be honest, considering the picks they shipped off, and I really liked getting Kaman Maluach at the 10 pick. I thought he slid a little bit. He's huge, first of all, 7'2", 250. And he also might provide a little bit of spacing. I know he had a pretty respectable 75 plus from the line. He was at 77% free throw. So there's a little bit of potential in there too. I know he played well in the tournament. So he's a guy to definitely get excited about. I know in the wake of that trade, everybody was kind of questioning the amount of 2s and 3s that this team has. So I think getting Williams and Maluach as your two kind of centers of the future to hold it down low and just kind of make sure that this team isn't just solely constructed of guards and kind of wings. I think that was good to bring in. I mean, I don't think the Bucks are necessarily going to make the playoffs next year, but I do think that the vibes could improve a little, and they could even get a little bit, dare I say, better record-wise. I think there's room for that. I mean, obviously, Devin Booker is going to be leading the charge, who we like a lot, but
I mean, last year this team was 10 games below 500, so I definitely could see some improvement there.
Yeah, just a little more buy-in. I mean, the vibes were so stale there last year. You lose a guy like Bradley Beal, who that definitely wasn't working with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I really don't hate what they did. I mean, they're not a contender, but they improved their outlook overall, I would say. So not a winner, not a loser, but I was impressed.
At the end of the day, this team had just an incredibly difficult situation. So you can only come out of it so positively, if that makes sense. I think Jalen Green, still a guy who's only 23 years old, a guy who I'm not comfortable writing off yet by any means, just because we saw the flashes of the upside, and it really was tantalizing. I was someone who was very sold on Jalen Green. I thought he'd be a star. And I don't want to count that out yet. I think him being next to someone like Devin Booker and having the spacing that Phoenix should have, which should be better than kind of the clumped offense that we saw him have to deal with in Houston, that there's a world where that does help open up Jalen Green's offensive game. And I mean, like you said, when you go into last season and your center depth is Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee, and then you come in a year later and you have these two young guys who both have pretty solid upside, especially Maluach with the 10th pick. I mean, he can be a very, very quality starting center. I think they did just about the most you can do being in that difficult of a situation. I like buying out Beal. I think getting him off the roster and getting that era over with was definitely appropriate.
Yeah. Again, just really can't overstate how bad the situation was. Obviously, in the wake of the Bradley Beal and the KD trades, this team was in a porous position, and they at least have some things that they can look forward to this next season after what was a pretty bleak outlook. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up our winners and losers, unless you have anybody. It was super fun, first pod in the books.
Okay, great stuff, man. I think we touched on a pretty great amount of teams today. Pretty much everyone that made notable moves and acquisitions. And of course, as we keep this going, we'll be able to touch on each team individually at some point as well. So that'll be cool. Definitely stay tuned for that. We'll have more coming out. But yeah, I think this will be the start of something great. And for anyone listening here, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it, and you will definitely be hearing more from us in the near future.
Of course. And yep, along that vein, we plan on talking about some NFL later this week as we ramp up for that season. We're going to be talking a little bit about your fantasy football teams, giving you advice, maybe doing a little draft and little
Yes, sir.
good late round picks, our favorites, least favorites. We're going to give you the goods on how to win your leagues this year. But thank you for listening to Low Ball, and that'll be it.
Until next time.